Oh, sweet God. It took me about 8 years to be fully happy with who I am now because you go through the original shock, then you go through the bargaining process where I'm okay if I can get this back, or I'm okay if I can get that back, or I'm okay if I only have this. And you go through the whole process, and then you go through the angry mode and the morbidly depressed mode. Morbidly depressed mode can stay there quite a long time. That's a horrible stretch. I thankfully didn't last too long in that one. Um, then you get the angry mode where you hate everybody. That can come in and go out on a regular basis depending on how you're feeling.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamas, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to Recovery After Stroke, a podcast full of answers, advice, and practical tools for stroke survivors to help you take back your life after a stroke and build a stronger future. I'm your host, 3 times stroke survivor, Bill Gassiamas. After my own life was turned upside down and I went from being an active father to being stuck in hospital, I knew if I wanted to get back to the life I loved before, my recovery was up to me. After years of researching and discovering, I learned how to heal my brain and build a healthier and happier life than I ever dreamed possible. And now I've made it my mission to empower other stroke survivors like you to recover faster, achieve your goals, and take back the freedom you deserve. If you enjoy this episode and want more resources, accessible training, and hands-on support, check out my Recovery After Stroke membership community. Created especially for stroke survivors and caregivers, this is your clear pathway to transform your symptoms, reduce your anxiety, and navigate your journey to recovery with confidence. Head to recoveryafterstroke.com to find out more after this podcast. But for now, let's dive right into today's episode. This is episode 159, and my guest today is Gary Kearney. Gary was assaulted in his early 40s, and the attack left him with multiple head injuries and lifelong deficits. These days, Gary is a disability advocate and activist, presenter and producer of Viva Vox, a disability show with a difference at Dublin City FM, and is the founder of the hashtag Purple Lights 19. Gary Kearney, welcome to the podcast.
My absolute pleasure. And I mean that. It's my first podcast. I've done radio, I've done TV, I've done press, but I never did a podcast. So this is a world first. You have my basic first time ever.
I feel honored and blessed. Thank you so much, mate. We have tried to connect a couple of times before, but we haven't made it happen. Now we have this time, which is good. What I want to know is what happened to you? Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I was 45 years old. I was on holidays. I was on leave from work. I was finished work on the Friday. I had a week off. I was going fishing. I went in to see a friend of mine, see was she okay, and we had a couple of pints. Nothing mad. Like if I was blind drunk, I'd have said, "Oh, I was blind drunk," and I walked in front of a car or fell over. But unfortunately, that wasn't the story. I was roofied, and then I was mugged for my wallet.
You were roofied and mugged.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm, as you can see, not exactly I'm not the leprechaun Irish. I'm the giant Irish, and I'm 6'2" and 20-odd stone. So like they were rubbing the wrong man, even out of my face. I was able to wreak havoc upon them, as they say, and I got away. So I had a plan. My last conscious thought was, it's 9:30. I'll walk home. It's 25 past 9 at the clock. I was at the clock, right? I said, I'll walk up, I'll get a pizza, and then I'll go home. So this was about 10:30 at this stage. I'd lost an hour, 2 hours, somewhere in between. And I walked into a pizza place, and I knew Pat, the owner, lovely guy. And I ordered the pizza, paid for my pizza. He said to me afterwards, "You just look like you were blind drunk," which was at times a possibility. I could have been, but it wasn't this time. Started to throw up blood everywhere, and collapsed. Doctor was there because the nearest hospital was only 4 minutes away. He was in collecting pizzas for the staff. So he dragged me outside, screamed at them, "Get this man an ambulance. This is not drink. He's seriously in trouble." I had an ambulance in 4 minutes, and I was in the hospital in 8. I had oxygen within 5 minutes, which I think is, personally, I think is one of the big reasons why I recovered the way I recovered. I had 2 subdural hematomas and a subarachnoid hemorrhage, multiple fractures of the base of my skull, which is the toughest bone, hardest bone in your body to break. It's so strong, but mine was shattered. And nerve damage to the left of my face, causing deafness, profound deafness on my left side. Punctured eardrum and damage to my right, which means I'm 50% deaf in my right ear. So I've a hearing aid in my right ear, and people come and shout in my left ear, and I think, "What are you doing that? That doesn't work at all. It's only good for headphones and sunglasses and things like that. It's not good, I can't hear." So that was 12 years ago, 12 and a half years ago. And I got palliative care because there was no point in sending me to the neurological specialist hospital, because there was no point. I was going to die. Or if I did survive, I was going to be in a wheelchair in a nursing home with a nappy on. I didn't, as you can see. I woke up the next day, I think, or maybe the day after, with a hell of a bad headache. And only people that have had brain injuries know what a brain injury headache is about. It's a whole different level of headache. And I was seeing double. I couldn't hear properly. And I thought, okay, I'm breathing. That's a start. It's a good start. Okay. I can move everything. That's okay. Let's see what I can. Let's just keep focusing on that. And that was the start of the journey. Here I am, 12 and a half years later. And I'm proud of myself, to be honest. I am very proud of myself.
Yeah. So your bleeds in the brain were caused due to the mugging. Was it
trauma.
Assault?
Yeah, it was. I was assaulted. Your man wrecked it. The neurosurgeon, like my consultant, said to me, they must have hit you with a wooden bar. They must have hit you with a piece of wood. I said, why is that? To find splinters. Look, I'm a black sense eater anyway, so like it just happened. And he was great crack. And he said, no. He said, because there was some give in the wood. If it had been metal, the amount of times that you were struck, you were dead. You were just lucky they had wood, because there's a bit of flexibility in wood. It doesn't give it puts all the pressure through to the object. So there was enough of a cushion from it being wood rather than iron or steel to not kill me. So I joked with him that, you're still looking for plasters back there, or splinters back there, and all this sort of crap, because I have, as I say, a very dark sense of humor, and I do have a tendency to laugh in the face of hell, let's be honest, danger. It's, you wake up, you haven't a clue where you are, you haven't a clue what's going on, everything hurts. So you freak out. Well, I do, but then I start laughing. How the hell did I end up here? What the hell happened? And go from there, because I know I'm in trouble. So like getting worried about it and upset about it's not going to make it any better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What did they steal, Gary?
Nothing.
They just gave you a beating to mug you?
No, they were going to steal my watch. They were going to steal my wallet, because there was about €800 in it. And my credit card and all the rest, my plastics and all the rest, and anything they could. Unfortunately, even though I was out of my face, I'm a big lad and I know how to mix it up when I have to. And I was a lot younger than I am now. I have a lovely shiner which I'm trying to hide politely, because I walked into a punch. But I'm a big fella, and I know how to I know how to defend myself. And the other thing was that somebody said to me, "But you were drugged, and they whacked you over the head." I said, "Yeah, but the survival instinct of you don't understand the survival instinct till you actually needed it. Like you hear stories and you see videos of women lifting cars off their children, and that. That's a basic instinct. That's the most basic instinct you've got, is to say keep yourself alive." So I fought like hell, and I fought them off. I put them in the same hospital as I was in, actually, but that's another story.
Since you mentioned it, you walked into a punch yesterday.
Yes, I
Does
did. I did.
trouble follow you around, or do you look for trouble?
No, trouble follows me around. Um, I come from a very lucky family, and people say the opposite to us. We're very unlucky. One of my brothers, has passed away. He broke his neck in a car crash. My other brother broke his back in a car crash. I've been attacked and all of it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen to us. But our attitude is the opposite. Our attitude, well, okay, we've been dealt a tough one. Let's get on with it. And we laugh like the slagging I get over my brain injuries, the teasing I get over my brain injuries is rotten from my own family. But then I tease them about their stuff. So like, there's it's I found myself that the worst thing for me is like I'm invisible, right? I'm 6'2", I'm a big fella, big roly poly guy and a big loud voice, and there's nothing wrong with him. And I'll be talking to somebody like you. We don't look disabled. It's invisible time. And I say, oh yeah, I have multiple disabilities. I have brain injuries. I'm deaf. I have this, that, and the other. And you can see their eyes change. You can see the look in their face. And they stand a little further back and they start talking slowly and opening their mouth and closing it. And you think, I shouldn't have said that. Let them just think I'm an idiot rather than they have to do this. So we don't, my family, you get empathy, you get support, but you don't get sorrow. And you get sympathy for the mess you're in, but that's it. Then it's let's get on and get it fixed. And the attitude is always, that attitude has come from my parents, probably from my grandparents. It's you got dealt the cards and I deal with it. And that's been my attitude from the very first. I'm not saying, of course, that it doesn't go belly up a lot of times. It goes belly up all the time. I mean, that's the joy of being brain injured, in that you're never quite sure what's. It's as I say about brain injury, it's always surprising. It's never boring, because you never know what the hell's going to happen next, because you can't remember what happened. So if something happens, it might have happened before, but I can't remember it. So I never get bored.
Did you ever do the whole compare yourself to before your injury and after your injury?
Oh yeah.
And
Who
find it hard to reconcile?
I found it hard to reconcile.
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
Oh, sweet God. It took me about 8 years to be fully happy with who I am now. Because you go through the original shock, then you go through the bargaining process, where I'm okay if I can get this back, or I'm okay if I can get that back, or I'm okay if I only have this. And you go through the whole process, and then you go through the angry mode and the morbidly depressed mode. Morbidly depressed mode can stay there quite a long time. That's a horrible stretch. I thankfully didn't last too long in that one. Then you get the angry mode where you hate everybody. That can come in and go out on a regular basis, depending on how you're feeling.
And who it is.
And who it is, yeah. And how sensitive you are that particular day. Because it's got a Y in it or something. There's no rhyme or reason why we have to be in particularly good or bad form. It's just, it's sunny. I'm in bad form. It's raining, I'm in good form. It's raining, I'm in bad form. There's no logic in it. But there is in our heads. Because we've seen what's wrong and we're upset about it. And the other thing then, of course, is you're trying so hard to be who you used to be, but you can't be who you used to be. It's like a friend of mine said to me one day when I was trying to do what I did when I was 25, and he says, Gary, you're 35 years old. You're not 25 anymore. You can't do them things. You're not the same person. So why am I trying to be the person I used to be? So I stopped. I didn't think there was any point because one, I can't do it. And two, I like who I am now. I've created this person. How many people can say they got a second chance?
Yeah.
I mean, I got a chance to start with this person and be who I am. And I'm happier within myself as a person now than I was before my brain injuries because I had to sit down and look at my life and decide where I was going, what I was doing, how I was going to do it, fall flat on my face repeatedly, repeat, rinse, repeat. But slowly and surely, and it took 8 years, I got through to trying to be who I was for me. I got through, and this is a subliminal one. This is a nasty one because you don't see it. I stopped trying to be who I was for other people because I look the same. You don't look the same. But yeah, you don't look stupid, but looks deceived. I got into trouble for that one. I did say it to my boss, so I mean, I suppose no wonder I wasn't working there much later. And you're trying so hard to be what everybody wants you to be, and it's like, it's like the big swan on the water gracefully going upstream. But that's like us on top of the water where we look like we're dealing with everything in our grand. Underneath, our legs are going like mad. Inside our head, we're trying to balance the 101 million things we're trying to balance to function in an able world, which wants us to be able, and we're trying to be able to make them happy. And I honestly think what most of that does is it makes us miserably unhappy. And it's well, I talked about this to a friend of mine, and she said to me, Gary, it sounds like when I came out. She said, you came out as a person with disabilities. I said, yeah, I have done. I own my disabilities. They don't own me. They are a part of me, but they are not me. And once I owned my disability, it stopped controlling my happiness, my sadness, my wants. I, I came to terms with, okay, this is it. This is what's happening. I can do this. Now, how am I going to make it better? How am I going to make myself happy? How am I going to make new friends? Because the first thing I saw, well, the last thing I saw was the back of everybody running away from me after I got hurt after about 2 years. They'd had enough of me because I was in angry mode still. I think I lasted in angry mode for about 4 years. And so nothing. So I built my life. And I built it up and built it up. And 4 or 5 years ago, it started to go better and better. And it's sort of snowballed since then.
You know, the angry phase, that's interesting. Who were you angry at? Was it somebody? Was it something? What was it?
I was angry. Well, in my case, I was attacked. So there was the two people that attacked me. So I had somebody to be angry with. I have friends that have had strokes, and they're saying, "Oh, it shouldn't have happened to me. It shouldn't have happened." They're angry at God. They're angry at life. They're angry at everybody around them. That they're angry at the person. Hell, some people are angry at me because I had 3 brain injuries and they only had 1, and they're worse than I. They feel they're worse than I am. So it's pain, and you're frustrated, and you just lash out because, well, the first thing is you can't understand why you're feeling so bloody angry. You can't understand why everything is upsetting you, because this is a whole new brain in here. This is a whole new way of thinking, and it's all new. I mean, if a 3-year-old throws a tantrum, people go, "Oh well, they throw tantrums." I'm only 12. 13 next year. I'm a teenager. God forbid. I don't like the first time I went through that one either. Woo, nasty.
So
I
you're
look
only
at it that
12.
way.
Okay, I just got that. Your humor is wittier than mine. So you're only 12 because you're kind of starting again from that new version of yourself after the
Yeah,
injury, and you're learning about your brain again, and you're kind of learning how to navigate everything. And I get it. That makes sense.
yeah. That's I was at a actually is the photograph up there? No, it's not. I spoke in Dáil Éireann, the Irish Parliament, at a super committee, education, employment, I get to just four of them. The House committees all in this one big super committee, as it's called. And I introduced myself and I said, I'm 6 years old, or I'm 54 years old, depending on how you look at it. Just me, as I am now, is 4 years old. The body and the is 54. And that's what it is, because what are you, but what you think you were, what you feel you were inside your head. And that what people meet is the you that you project and what you say and what you feel. But when the thing that does all that, the brain gets coddled about a bit, shaken and not stored, um, new neural pathways go, parts die, parts get damaged. So it's not the same brain anymore. So if it's not the same brain, you're not the same person. There's a lot of you still there, but there's bits gone. There's new neural paths. Like between my first and two CAT scans, my neuropsychologist explained it to me. So she said, I can show you, but you won't understand. I said, just explain. Between my first and second CAT scans, which were 12 hours apart, there was new neural pathways being formed by my brain. Because the brain is very selfish. It wants to take control. It wants to work. So I give my brain every opportunity to fix, to make new neural pathways, to do more. I'm constantly um, doing cognitive exercises, doing mindfulness, doing CBT, doing all sorts of things that I've got done over the years to constantly keep my brain active and to try and make it as fast and as sharp as possible. So it's I try and keep myself brain fit.
Yeah, I love what you said. You do CBT, you do mindfulness, you do everything that you can to keep your brain changing and growing and getting better. I love the sound of that. You don't look
Yeah,
like
because
somebody who does mindfulness though, because on on the internet, they let people that do mindfulness look way different than you, man. They're
well, no, you see, that's the other thing. One size doesn't fit all. I've never fit any size. I do the little snippets. I take the little bits that I can use with the process, and I put it into my own. Like the doctor said to me when I was coming out recovering the first 2 weeks, 16 days in hospital, he said to me, "Look, some doctors will tell you 6 months, some doctors will tell you 12 months, some doctors will push it 2 years, some will even say 3 years. You won't know where you're going to be till that far along." He says, "That's right. I don't believe that." He says, "The first 6 months are important. The first year is important. You will reach milestones and you will plateau at stages. But never ever stop working at your recovery." And I took what he said, and okay, admittedly, in COVID, I couldn't. I mean, we have had severe lockdowns in Ireland for 18 months.
yeah.
I left this flat to go shopping. My Google Map thing is I mean, my steps, I did 300 steps around the little flat I live in. So, like, that's been my life for the last 18 months. So, and
So
I
what
go
you're
out
saying to me is you're 12 years past the injury, and what you're telling me is you're still actually, it's in the front of your mind to do things to continue the recovery, to continue healing, to continue working your brain, still in the front
yeah,
of your mind. And what you just
yeah,
said was because of COVID, you found it difficult to continue doing that. People who are having strokes now are saying how hard it is to get access to services, and they're at 12 months in and they really need it. And you're 12
mm,
months, 12 years away. And there's no doubt you need it, but you're not at that acute stage. You're not missing
no.
out like they are in that real
Oh no,
acute phase.
the quality of the way it has the medical system over here, the HSEs, it's go. If you have a stroke, the hospital side of it, the initial recovery side of it is great. It's the long-term rehabilitation services. Now, I'm a client of Headway Ireland. I'm a proud client of Headway Ireland. Like, they've saved my life 2 or 3 times at this stage. And at the moment, they had to close down the day services, and all of those services, and they had to put them online, which people found difficult. And Zoom at the time wasn't the greatest system or the easiest system to work. It's gotten much better. And it's the support wasn't there.
What is Headway, Gary? What is
Headway Ireland? Headway Ireland is a brain injury and support service. Brain injury support services. They provide the support services for the government, for the health service. They're a service provider for the health service for the Irish Health Department.
Okay.
So we don't go to a hospital. They don't do the cognitive training or the all of that stuff. Like I'm on a cognitive rehabilitation program at the moment, right? With my neuropsychologist, because I needed it, because I knew locking down was easy. It was unlocking was going to be the hard part. See, locking down I did years ago when I got hurt. I stopped going out. I stopped seeing people. I couldn't do anything I wanted to do. Yeah, that's just like I did that 12 years ago. And all the things, it was easy to pull myself back into into my own little bubble. But the last time I came out of my little bubble was very, very hard. So I knew this was going to be difficult. So that's what I'm doing at the moment with my neuropsychologist. We're working with where I'm going wrong, where I'm going right. Why am I going wrong? Why am I getting this wrong? Why am I getting this right?
I love it, man.
And it's constant work. You can't give up. You can't stop trying.
I love it.
Because if you do, you switch off.
You know, I've not spoken to anybody, and maybe it's just a lack of asking the right question, but I haven't spoken to anyone who's 12 years out and still seeing a neuropsychologist.
Why shouldn't I? That's the way I look at it. I need, like, funny thing is, I met her when she was in training, so I've known her, I know her about 10 years now. It's great. Elaine is a genius. But that's where the support is needed, because I walk into Headway headquarters down the road in Blackhall Square and Blackhall Green, and it's not just about what they say to me or what I do. I might go in and sit there at the men's shed and just drink tea and slag people, right? Quite often that's all I do. But it's Headway. The building gives me a hug. I don't have to be Gary Kearney, disability advocate. I don't have to be Gary Kearney, radio host. I don't have to be Gary Kearney, anything. I'm just Gary, good guy. And I can breathe. I can have a bad brain day and not be paranoid. I can be having a bad day or a good day, and they'll be happy for me. They'll still be talking to me whether I'm having a bad brain day or good. So it's the one place in the world I can breathe out and not have to try and present myself into as a more able person than I actually am.
Is that what led you to that point where you just said before, you said that they saved your life a couple of times?
Like, oh yeah.
Did you really get to that point where it got that serious?
I wasn't going to commit suicide, but I was going to end up dead because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was taking risks. I was drinking heavily, and I wasn't caring for myself. And there's all the things you're not supposed to do when you've got brain injuries, and I was doing them all because I didn't care. And I'd lost everything. I rang him up. I said, I'm at the bottom of my rope, and I'm on a piece of string, and I've tied a knot in it. I really need help. Everything I had touched, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my friends, I'd lost my family, I'd lost most of my family, I'd lost my life savings, I'd lost everything. I was just about to become homeless. So I was just boom. So it wasn't I was going to throw myself in the canal. I wasn't going to. I don't quit, but I was living too recklessly. I was living so recklessly because I didn't care about myself.
Was that part of the anger?
Yeah, part of the anger, part I was angry at myself for not doing better than I'd done, which is God knows how often do we beat ourselves up over something goes, our brain lets us down, or we forget something, and we beat ourselves up again. And it was like a flash. I said it talking to Elaine one day. I said, "Why am I still beating myself up? I'm helping the two sots that did this to me in the first place. I'm mad. I am. I'm saying that's the other thing. I thought I was going insane as well because I couldn't express myself. Oh, that's called aphasia. That's okay. This is what you do. You mean this is normal? That's why I loved my neuropsychologist, because she put I had a lot of different, I have a lot of different issues, but I wouldn't have them extreme as a lot of people. But my whole brain, I had massive subcranial pressure and they couldn't release it. So I had a head like the size of a melon and my eyes were full of blood. And I was like, my brain was being squished down my neck and all sorts of stuff. Like I wasn't supposed to live. So all of my brain at different stages was getting serious pressure on it. And grey matter and white matter was getting damaged and all sorts of stuff. So, you go to your first classes as you now have brain injuries. Welcome to the Brain Injury Club. This is a brain. Oh, hang on. This is a skull. And then they open it and they show you all the bits and, it's great. And then they give you a list which tells you which parts of the brain does what and what does which. And if you've got problems, it's because, and then you match them with your own brain parts that you got damaged, and you go, that makes sense, that makes sense. I couldn't. Because I'd go to different stuff, it was all over the place. But when I met Elaine, she said to me, well, this is why that she did the neuropsych assessment, which I, of course, took as a test and attacked. It was supposed to take 8 hours. I did it in 3.5. Yeah, well, I didn't know. I just went for it. And she went through it and she went to the top neuropsychologist, Suvi. She explained it. They came down and told me, and I swore at them. I told them that wasn't true. And they diagnosed me with ADHD, 47 and a half. Now looking back on it, she then proceeded to read my life backwards to me. How long my relationships were, jobs were, friends were, family were, everything. She read my whole life completely backwards. And so with everything that happened, they said your unique brain chemistry and brain setup from your ADHD probably has something to do with why you're still here, because you shouldn't be. But your brain was fairly odd in the first place. So, that's why you survived, we think. But we can't be sure. Because they can never be sure about brain injury. Again, my surgeon, Connor, he said to me, Gary, we know more about the dark side of the moon than we do about the human brain. And he says, we can work with live hearts. We can work a little bit with live brains. But we can't do it like we can the rest of the body, because once the brain is dead, it's dead. You can't see how it works. You're mapping it, you're doing everything. So that's
a profound statement, actually, because they can dissect the heart and see what happens in there, how it's made, valves, they can see all of that. And they can see the damage to a valve or to an aorta or wherever. But you're right, once the brain stops working, there's nothing to see, because it still looks the same as it did when it was working. And those little bits of cells, they're not like any other part of the body. So that, for the first time ever, makes sense to me now as to why the medical research in this space is still so, what do we call it, so early on. Like we got hardly nothing. We know what certain things do, but
we've come on But Barack Obama, before he left, he set up a thing in the US called BRAIN. And he called it man's final frontier, our own brains. 30 billion they're going to invest over the next 20 years. And I thought that was great because spinal injuries only became a big issue after after World War II and then Vietnam. Amputees was World War II. Spinal injuries were World War II, but particularly in the US after Vietnam. And now with the last few wars, it's all traumatic brain injuries. And suddenly the US has thrown billions and billions of dollars at brain injury, at understanding it. And it's getting better. I mean, my mother had a stroke. My mother died of a stroke. All of my uncles on her side of the family died of strokes. And some of my cousins on that side of the family have died of strokes. We're genetically, my sister found out, she got a test that we are genetically susceptible to strokes. So I had a traumatic brain injury because I couldn't follow the rest of it. So the advances being made are great, but I reckon that we're the best people in the world to teach people about brain injuries and to help doctors understand us more by telling them what's wrong, what's right, what's working, what's not working. We're the only guinea pigs they've got, but we're the experts because we live it. He can tell me that this neuron's doing that and that neuron's doing that. I can tell him that, but actually I don't know what they're doing inside, but they're having a fight at the moment because I've got a terrible pain right here. I can't feel it. I'm getting stressed out because of this. Why? And that's why I like neuropsychologists, because they can say, well, that could be this, and they'll work it out and we'll work out my triggers. Like, I'm going to develop more triggers as time goes on. That's why I have a support service as time goes on, because you don't recover from brain injuries. You survive and you carry on. And it's a constant, it's a never-ending process. It's not like a leg can heal. The brain doesn't heal. You don't get better from brain injuries. The brain doesn't grow back. It changes and adapts and does whatever it has to do to keep itself functioning.
It adapts. I love that. That's exactly what it does. That's what neuroplasticity is. It's just adapting. It's like humans. When I'm not sure where we emerged from or which part of the planet we're on and what that was like, but we've adapted to be able to live in the snow, in the coldest conditions, in the hottest conditions, in the wettest conditions, in the most humid conditions. We've adapted to be able to survive everywhere. And that's what the brain tries to do. It tries to adapt and survive under duress, under any circumstances whatsoever.
The brain is the most selfish organ in the body, because I joke that I have me and I have the brain, my subconscious. Just me, the conscious me wants to do things, but the subconscious me is not having none of it. So I'll make deals. I say, okay, look, let me get all this done, and then you can shut me down for a week if you want. And people say, well, what's he doing? I said, look, there was a French potholer, right? I don't know if you know potholing, where they climb down in holes in the ground, and they underground caves and all this sort of stuff. And this French potholer went down this famous set of caves. He'd done it loads of times. He got lost, and he tried to find his way out, and he couldn't. So he lay down, and he lay down beside some water, so he could at least keep hydrated. And he lay there, and he lay there, and he lay there, freezing cold, like total darkness, and he lay there. 32 days later, I think it was, they found him. His brain was still working. He was complete muscle wastage. The brain had taken all of the energy. It shut down each part of his body, one after the other, to keep whatever energy that the body was keeping, to keep itself alive. It was actually starting to eat the heart muscle to keep itself alive, keep taking the energy that should have been going to the heart to keep itself alive. Now, he got better, and he recovered and all the rest. But that's what the brain wants to look after itself. So I try and give it every opportunity. I try and feed it as much as it wants to be fed. And I try and make it work. Just, it's like exercise. The more you exercise, the fitter you get. I find the more I push myself, the more I try mentally to do things, I'll get a little bit better. Now, I won't get a huge bit better, but I'll get a little bit.
But you're not perfect. You're not perfect at it either, are you?
No, God, no. People say, "Well, you're so great." I said, every morning I wake up, I think, great. What do I do next? I went, what? I said, yeah, when I wake up, you get out of bed, you do. I don't. Why not? Because I can't remember. I have to think about what I'm doing. Everything I do, I have to think about it before I do it. If I'm going somewhere, I have to have a plan how to get there. But because I'm so cautious of it, cautious of things going wrong and aware of things going wrong, I have 3 different ways of getting there and 3 different ways of getting home. I have multiple setups and backups, and belt, like somebody said, belt and braces. I said, you gaffer tape, string, and everything else I can think of. I plan for things to go wrong, so when they do, I don't freak out.
I like it. So when did you become interested in disability support and being an advocate in that space? Because I see a couple of hashtags in that background there. You got hashtag disability GE 2020. You've got hashtag
that was the general election.
That was a general election.
GE 2020 was a general election. It was a general and local. Local elections and general elections. We used it for both of them. Make Way Day is on the 24th of September. It was we started in Dublin, but now it's across the entire country, and it's about keeping the footpaths clear. It's about keeping the footpaths accessible. It's about not parking on footpaths, cutting hedges, no A-boards. It's about disability access in the urban realm, as I've since learned it's called. The last one, whoops, back way. That one there.
Purple Lights 19. Hashtag Purple Lights 19.
Now, that's very special. Purple Lights 19. Purple Lights was my idea. A friend of mine said the building was going purple on December the 3rd for UN International Day of Persons with Disabilities. So I didn't know we had a day. So yeah. So well, if they can go purple, why can't others? So I threw it around. I have a tendency, I just throw it into the back of my head. Throw it into this. The answer's there. I just can't draw it out like I used to. Like I was known as the brain because somebody said, Gary, what's this? And I go, that's that. Or what were we doing? Well, we did that, or we were there and we did this. Gone, right? That short-term memory problem. The long-term and medium-term are good, but the retrieval system is very bad. It's like when I once had a hard disk for a brain of a filing system, it's now a big manual filing system that I have to run up hundreds of stairs. So it can take some time for the answer to come out. So I throw the idea into the back of my head and I let it bounce around in there for a while and it'll come to me. So Purple Lights was, why don't they do this? Why can't they do this? How can they do this? See, change, not why they don't. How can they? Why will they? How can I get them to? And with about a month to go, 3 weeks, I decided to start ringing people. So I rang the National Concert Hall in Dublin, and I rang Dublin City Council, and I Disability Federation of Ireland were started pushing it. We got Trinity College in Dublin. I got the Bank of Ireland and College Green, which is the same, opposite each other. And we started getting bits and bobs, and suddenly it started to get a bit of life. So the first year, Purple Lights 18, was a great success because we have a thing called the Rock of Cashel, right?
What is it called?
It's the Rock of Cashel.
Let me just paint a picture. I've just Googled it while we watch it. The Rock of Cashel is an amazing old Gothic building at the very top of some kind of a hill or something, right? And it's sensational, brick, solid. You know, it's what we see in, you know, those movies about, you know, William Wallace or somebody like that. Like it's one of those types of buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. It's a World Heritage Site, and I got them to turn it purple.
Wow. So
Yeah.
they lit it up with lights.
They have lights there that they can light it up, and they do light it up for Patrick's Day, for Pride, for different things. But I never knew about it. The group themselves found out, contacted the Disability Federation of Ireland, and said, "Do you mind if we light up purple?" So they rang me and said, "Gary, the Rocket Castle wants to light up." I said, "Whoever wants to light up purple can light up purple. This is great." They lit up the Rocket Castle, right? And that was amazing. It was on the 9 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news, the main news broadcast in Ireland. There was purple lights, a celebration of UN International Day of Persons with Disabilities, a world first. The Rocket Castle was lit up, and I did it. A brain injured guy from Dublin, and it was exciting. You know, you now have, like I said at Dáil Éireann, I said I was 47 years old. I was thrown on a scrap heap. I just did sort of hang around till I died, and I refused to do that. And I've gone on and I've lit the Rocky Castle purple, and Cork City Council, Limerick, Galway, all over the country lights up purple. The Irish Embassy in London lit up purple. I'm hopefully trying to get the Polish Embassy or the English Embassy in Poland, because the ambassador is a cerebral palsy survivor or person, and he lit up the British Embassy. I lit the British Embassy in Dublin purple. You know, they're big things for a working class lad from a corporation house in Whitehall to be going and doing. It's not, it's not the sort of thing I'd be expected to do.
They are brilliant things to do, to achieve, but also the underlying cause is really benefiting from this. So how does it help? How does it help disability? How does it help the cause, the disability advocacy cause, when you do that? What does it actually do? What does it change? What does it create?
Right. What purple lights did, when I'd ask people to turn things purple, I'd put it in this way. I'd say, look, you light up green for Paddy's Day. You light up rainbow for Pride. So you light up purple for people with disabilities. It's the same thing. What do you mean? I said, we're 20% of the community. We're asking you to celebrate the day that is designated our UN International Day. And people will ask you why everything's turning purple. It's access. It's an awareness campaign. It gets people thinking. Why is everything purple? It gets in the newspapers. It gets to the TV. It gets on the radio, especially on my show. It's very good, very heavy on my show. But people go, other disc jockeys, other presenters will go, "Hey folks, everything's turning purple." Companies say, "Why? Oh, is it you? I didn't know." And they're becoming aware then of people with disabilities, and it gives you the chance then to say, "Look, you helped us with purple lights. Could you help us? Did you know this? Could you support this? Or could you help this group?" And it brings them into it without the sympathy vibe. Yes, the poor sods, God bless them, you have to help them. They're disabled. None of that. It's not that, "Oh, look at us, we're helping the disabled." Like, the companies go out and paint a few walls and they all come out and they get their T-shirts and everybody's there. There's photographs for the staff magazine, and nobody ever thinks about it ever again. Till the next year when they do another place and they do the same bloody thing. But with this, it's getting it in at the top level where the money is. And that's what we need, is money. We need jobs, we need housing, we need education, we need support. And we get it in at the top level, and it trickles down, and then people in the staff are saying, "Why are we going purple?" It's because of this. "Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'd love to help." And they may have people in their family who are disabled. They may be disabled themselves and are struggling to stay afloat, because don't forget, especially with us, we hide in plain sight. People will have brain injuries and can con people that they're not brain damaged, that they're not disabled at all, because they're embarrassed by it. Like, as I said, I came out, but purple lights turns everything purple. Like Patrick's Day turns everything green all over the world. So if you imagine if the entire world turned purple, on UN International Day of Disabled People. Our day, you, us, celebrating us as a people, as a community, and not like the Paralympics. Oh, look, they're superstars because they can do this and they're all that. No, the person going down the road with a guide dog or with a long cane or in a wheelchair or with cerebral palsy or with brain injuries, especially with brain injuries, and I'm biased there, but I bloody well should be. We have to try and live to a standard of able life that people don't understand that. I explain it as I'm working at 150% of what I should be working at, just to look
normal,
reasonably okay in an able world. Where in headway, I can go, bleh. Same way when you're around people with disabilities, you don't have to try and not be so disabled to make the able people feel uncomfortable, because if they get uncomfortable, if you know, they get guilty and they feel bad, and then they want to help you, but they don't want to help you because if they try and help you, they're probably going to insult you because people get upset about it. So, like, I try and get rid of all that. I say, look, if I'm having a bad day, I'll tell you. If you want to know, ask. People say, but you'll say anything. If somebody asks you, answer it. Tell them the truth. Because they'll appreciate it. Because they will appreciate it. Because they have to. Because they asked the question, sorry, my phone cut me off, and it suddenly decided to try and annoy me. Stupid thing. Don't hide. Don't be afraid. I stopped being afraid of being a person with disabilities. I stopped being afraid of admitting to, I'll be in the middle of a show and something, I'll forget a name, I'll forget something. And I go, blah, 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 blah. Well, sorry, folks, that's an aphasia moment. The word has just left the building. All the meantime, as I'm talking, my brain is going clatter, 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 trying to figure out where I was, what I meant to say, and how I can get back to it. And I get back to it and I carry on. But I don't hide it anymore. I don't try and get the studio, the engineers to cut it, match it, to do it right, you know, make it seamless. I'm not seamless. I don't want to be seamless.
Yeah.
I want people to see my mistakes. I want people to see me fall on my ass, because it's human. And they have this sort of image of us as either poor sympathetic victims or disability porn, where it's they're superstars. Look at them, they can do anything. We're not. We're people. We're just people, you know. We're just not special needs. We're different needs.
Yeah.
Purple Lights is a way of introducing them to 20% of the community they don't know, and to get them to think about it a bit more.
Yeah.
And that's awareness works like that.
I'm looking at the images on Google. All you have to do is type Purple Lights 19 and you get a whole bunch of images of the event, and you're standing in front of a bus.
Yeah, my bus. Yeah. My dad used to drive a Dublin bus, right? And they wrapped one in purple for me. They wrapped the bus. They did it 2 years in a row. We're going for a third one this year. Yeah, they wrapped a giant double-decker bus in purple that drove around the city for 7 months and would have been seen by millions and millions of people, celebrating UN International Day of Persons with Disabilities.
Yeah, and it's massive. The bus is massive. The riding is massive. International Day of Persons with Disability. I mean, it is a sensational thing to see, because buses are on the road all day, every day. People get on them, they get in them, they sit behind them, they sit next to them in their car. And it's pretty amazing. I can see there's a distant picture of another building that has been lit in purple from across a river. I can see that.
That's Limerick. I think that one's Limerick. We got Dublin County Council, City Hall. We got the Mansion House. We got Cork City Hall. We got colleges all over the place.
Yeah.
All the corporate community got behind us and lit up all of their buildings. All the way down the river was purple. Some of the bridges were purple. And it makes people think. And they're thinking about people with disabilities not as sympathy and not as heroes, just as people.
Yeah.
And that's half the battle, is to take us. It's like the social model of disability rather than the medical model or the rights model. That just thinking of us as people, because that's what we are for. We're people.
So the International Day of Persons with Disability is the 3rd of December every year. Is that right?
3rd of December every year.
I've never heard of it, Gary. I can't believe I've never heard of it. I know that the Stroke Foundation in Australia has a Purple Day or something like that, but it's not really that well associated to the day that you describe, and I'm not sure if it's on the same day. So it's really strange.
The group I used, the group I picked it up, I picked a lot of the information up of, is an Australian group. I can't remember the name of the offhand. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you when I find it. And because the UN have a very straight-laced and po-faced, very, official, but typical Australian, they got ass over tit at it and created a fun day, and created very important messages, but with a bit of vibe to it, a bit of kick to it. And as somebody said to me, Gary, you're not Australian, but you sound very Australian. I said, well, that's my sister. She lives there for 30 years. I said, but no, it's the attitude. It's a real, get in, get it done, and have fun while you're doing it.
It is.
And that's what
I'm looking here. There are some other days that are purple days, and one of them is Make May Purple for Stroke.
Yeah.
So it seems to have been used in that way, and that's the Stroke Association. I think that's our UK organization.
Yeah. The purple is a particular color for neurological conditions, right?
Uh-huh.
But purple is the overall color for disability. Purple. That's why I went with purple lights, because I'm an ex-roadie, I'm an ex-technician, or whatever you want to call it, stagehand, stage manager. I've done all that. So I knew the simplest thing to do was to turn lights purple with LEDs. I mean, the light just there, whoops, there you go, right? Purple light.
Yeah.
It's a simple matter of getting an LED light in your room, turning it purple.
I think
get the color change light bulbs. You buy the LEDs, the strips of LEDs for around your TV or your car or whatever you want to be flash. Just turn them purple. And that's all I'm asking people to do. And people joined in, except they were lighting. They lit the GPO, my old job, the most historic building in Ireland, the General Post Office, where the rebellion was started in 1916, turned purple.
I think you're right. The purple is the color that's used in a lot of those spaces. The Epilepsy Foundation has the 15th of June. It is a purple day as well. So, okay, I'm starting to see the purple is being used generally across those types of organizations. So it's good to see. It's really good to see. So, mate, you're
for the general community.
Yeah. So you're doing great work. Tell me, that work seems to also be a part of what you do on the radio show. What radio show is that? How long have you been doing the radio show?
I've been doing the radio show technically for 4 years. I've about 160 shows done. I had to stop for 40 or 50 shows at the start of the pandemic, because I couldn't get my head around Zoom. To be quite honest, I tried to do 2 of them on Zoom and I failed. And you know what it's like when you try something that's very important to you and you fail. You run away from it and don't come near it ever again. You know the routine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that again. That didn't work. That's my brain injury. It's my brain injury. It's my fault. I'm the terrible person. Why am I trying to do, down that horrible spiral?
Mm-hmm.
So I fought my way back out and I started again, and I've been doing the show now. I've about 160 shows done. Viva Vox, a disability show with a difference, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. It's available on www.dublincityfm.ie. It's every Thursday afternoon at 12:30 a.m. So it'll be half midnight where you are. But all of the shows are online. All the shows are on podcast. We were on SoundCloud. We're now on a new one, but they're all available on the website. And my plan with the show was to advocate and educate. And there's a third one that I didn't say at the time because I thought people would take it up wrong, but also to entertain. Because if you have a show about disabilities, it's either porn or pity. and I didn't want that. And it's not a show for people with disabilities. It's a show for people. It's a show about people. It's a show about people with disabilities sometimes, or with people like today's show was with Dr. Suzanne Mead, who's the head of Transport Infrastructure Ireland Safety. She was talking about shared space and shared cycle lanes and foot, things that affect our day-to-day stuff. And she was very positive about where I position myself on the issues. And it's about educating people about the issues that we have that they don't notice. Sure, it's fine. Everybody can eat outdoors and you can do this. You don't have to drive everywhere. Hey, some of us do. Oh, everybody can walk 500 meters. No, everybody can't walk 500 meters. And this is what I try to get out there. But rather than just shout it and scream it, I try and bring it into the conversation. And the show is I've a crowd up there somewhere. I won an award for it the first year, which was really good. And it's all about trying to educate people about the reality of being people with disabilities and living in the disabled world, because it's like I say it all the time, we are strangers in an able land because it's not designed for us. But if you listen to us and do what we tell and do what we ask, you'll design a better world for everybody.
It can service everybody rather than just the majority of the population. The conversation of ableism is something that's really big at the moment. And people are starting to understand the difference between, having a city or a public transport system organized for people who are on 2 feet and walking normally and all that type of thing. And how that limits a lot of the population, a lot of people from actually actively participating in that community. In Melbourne, where I live, and I'm certain it's like that in most other cities in Australia. I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to a few of them. If you're on a wheelchair, there's nothing stopping you from getting anywhere. Not on a bus, not on a tram, not on a train. And right now, they're still finishing off a project to raise all the platforms of the trams so that people can just roll up and roll into the tram with their wheelchair. It's the most amazing thing. Able people are getting pissed off about it because it's taking away car spots and it's decreasing the width of the road. But they're not understanding the massive difference that it's making to people who are in wheelchairs. And I took it for granted in Melbourne because it's been like that for many, many years. All the footpaths or have ramps that go down. There's no curb stopping you from driving your wheelchair off of that. And I went to Greece after my brain injury, after my strokes. And when I was in Greece, it was just after my surgery. So I had spent some time in a wheelchair and I realized how difficult it was to get around some places. But when I went to Greece, I realized that in Athens, if you're in a wheelchair, you're pretty much stuck at home. You've got nowhere to go, nothing to do, because you can't get out of a building, let alone use your wheelchair on a footpath and down the road. It's just not possible. There's even trees planted in the middle of a footpath in Athens. And most buildings, absolutely most buildings, not even one or two, I didn't even say one or two, have ramp access to the elevator of that building, to the lift of the building. Not a single one of them that I saw. And I was there when my cousin broke her foot and she had to climb up on her butt. She had to sit down and drag herself up with a freshly plastered foot. She had to get up about 15 steps to get into the elevator. And then I had to go into her apartment, grab a chair with wheels, like a computer chair, and somehow get her onto that chair, roll her into the elevator, and then roll her out into her apartment, where she spent the majority of her 6 weeks recovery, because getting out of that building was impossible. So I love what you're doing. Oh, yeah. I love the way that you're raising awareness. I love the fact that this conversation is happening. And if the city of Dublin needs an example of how to go about planning a city around all the population, not just the able people. All they've got to do is do one of those, public paid flights to Melbourne and have a look around.
Well, I intend some Fitzroy, so I was hoping to get to Melbourne, but of course that all went by the way when the pandemic hit. So you never know; we might be able to meet up yet. But we were the first city in the world to have fully accessible public transport, and we've some very good things like that, but we've some very bad things as well. So it's trying to keep the good and keep the process moving forward. I've started to say this thing, and it's driving planners absolutely nuts. Practical, not pretty. I said, that's the way you have to design. You're designing pretty, not practical. And they go mad, but that's what it is. But it's up to us as people to, okay, sometimes you have to kick up and complain and moan. Emailing your local councillor, your local MP, your local senator, whatever. When something's bad, don't kick up and scream, don't ignore it, just write off and complain about it. It only takes 5 minutes. But if they get enough complaints, they start to listen. Because politicians aren't going to know what the problem is for a person with a stroke, what a person with limited mobility. Yeah. The transport infrastructure, TII are buying a suit available in Germany for £2,000 worth, nothing to them. But it simulates old age. But one of the simulations is to simulate a stroke. A right-sided stroke was the picture with the arm, with the foot, with the mobility problems on one side. And even they've got 5 different pairs of glasses that shows different types of blindness and visual impairment, or different types of visual impairment. And she said, I love it. She said, I'm going to put all the senior planners into this thing to let them, and she lectured, she's going to put her students in to make them understand. And it's not sympathy, that will create empathy. That's not going to create sympathy. Yeah. They're going to go, I never realized. And that's the most wonderful word you'll ever hear as an advocate. It's when somebody goes, I never realized.
Yeah.
Because that means you've got them.
Yeah.
They're now understanding at last.
Gary, thank you, mate. I really love that, man. Look, we have struggled through heaps of technical issues. And before we have another one, I'm going to wrap it up. But I really want to thank you for reaching out, for the work that you do, for overcoming your own adversity, for continuing your recovery, for going out of your way to continue recovering. And I think you're a great example of what's possible. It's possible to be really shitty and low and in a dark place after a brain injury. And then it's also possible to come out of that and make a massive difference to other people's lives, at the same time making a massive difference to your life, because I feel like you doing this stuff is giving you purpose and meaning.
That's it completely. That wall there is not about ego. That's to remind me when I'm having a bad day that I make a difference, that I count. Because we've all been in that hole of self-pity and self-hate where nobody cares. It wouldn't matter if I wasn't here. I'm useless. I'm this, the self-hate stuff. That's to remind me I make a difference. What you said to me has really got to me, and I really appreciate that. That's what makes doing what I do worthwhile, is that I'm helping other people. And that in turn helps me. It gives me a reason to get up and to go. And knowing that I'm helping somebody is the greatest feeling in the world for me.
On that note, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on today's Recovery After Stroke podcast. Do you ever wish there was just one place to go for resources, advice, and support in your stroke recovery? Whether you've been navigating your journey for weeks, months, or years, I know firsthand how difficult it can be to get the answers you need. This road is both physically and mentally challenging, from reclaiming your independence to getting back to work to rebuilding your confidence and more. Your symptoms don't follow a rule book, and as soon as you leave the hospital, you no longer have medical professionals on tap. I know for me, it was as if I was teaching myself a new language from scratch with no native speaker in sight. If this sounds like you, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone and there is a better way to navigate your recovery and build a fulfilling future that you love. I've created an inclusive and supportive, accessible membership community called Recovery After Stroke. This all-in-one support and resource program is designed to help you take your health into your own hands. This is your guidebook through every step in your journey, from reducing fatigue to strengthening your brain health to overcoming anxiety and more. To find out more and to join the community, just head to recoveryafterstroke.com. See you on the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamas. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.